Welcome to the jeremymullinspodcast, where we take a deep dive into different educational topics to help you optimize your life. I am Jeremy. I am here today with my partner in crime for the podcast, Mr. Reno.
What's going on, sir?
We both had a long weekend of 3-day weekend this weekend. So it's the the physical year for the government slash the army. So it was a good way to kick off the year. Let me tell you that.
Great one. Got my flu shot, which wrecked me for 36 hours. Uh,
I think that might be why, because I got mine this weekend. Because I have to move some drills around in November for the Ironman, and I'm like, I just don't feel good. Is it the travel? Is it back to back weekends for both of you and I?
yeah,
We were at Team Alpha the weekend before, so 4 days out in St. Louis, and then for me, 4 days this week out in travel, days to drill weekend. I'm like, I just don't feel right, but it could be the flu shot now that you mention it.
yeah. I just had like a massive headache. Didn't feel like sick, just a headache and foggy and didn't want to do anything. Yeah.
Man, maybe I'll take it easy today. Thanks for reminding me that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had flu. When we did flu shots, we did the ACFT, we qualified, and here's my yearly statement. Right, I'm gonna put it out there so everybody can just hound me and stay on this. Okay, I shot 28 out of 30 again with the 9 millimeter handgun. That's what I shot last year. And I said last year I'm going to go buy the M18, which is just the shorter barrel of the Sig. And I'm like, I'm going to practice. I want to get 30 for 30. If I would just shoot and practice, I could get 30 for 30, right? And it's
Yeah.
been 28s, 29s the past 3 or 4 years. Um, and every year I say that and ask me how many times I shot last year.
0. Oh,
Zero.
1.
Yeah, yeah, no, the qualifying, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm like, Jeremy, just it doesn't matter. I qualify no problem, but it's just my nature. Like I want to go 30 for 30 with the Sig on my qualifying one of these years.
You got it. I did the qualifying for the SIG and I did 26 out of 30. And it was always like the second closest one that I like thought was just a layup.
Yeah, yeah. No, I missed one of the far ones kneeling, which I think it was just getting comfortable, getting in there, and I think I shot high on it. So, but hey, I'm doing that so the listeners can hold me accountable to invest in a new handgun and to practice with said handgun over the next year. So there we are. I'm putting it out there.
That's right.
But man, we had a good turnout. We had most ever, for our unit to show up to do ACFT, and it was pretty good excitement out of them. Like, didn't have some of that. You know how you just get sometimes the gruntle or disgruntled frustration, like people don't want to do it, that type of stuff. Like it went well. I think we had close to 60 or 70, that we tested in 2 days.
Yeah,
And
that's huge.
so yeah, it's very year like so it was a great weekend on our aspect to kick the year off and getting things started.
That's awesome. I think, I know this is a Army podcast, but I think the H2F stuff is finally gaining traction 2, 3 years later that,
Yeah,
people are starting to find fitness fun and seeing themselves get healthy as a byproduct of doing good on the ACFT is
correct. Yeah, I
yeah.
think it's now with the changing of it and being more of all around fitness, like, people are getting it, right? Like, oh, I can,
Mm,
not just do body weight stuff and run to be able to quote unquote pass this test, right? Like I can go and do fitness things. It makes me better all the way around, and I have a better score on this test.
right.
So yeah, I think we're starting to see it. I think we'll see it even more over the next 3 to 4 years, to be honest. So it's exciting times to look at that. And I think that's a good segue to what we want to talk about today with progress photos, where we're at inside of the My Transformation Challenge, within the first format, is we have to develop a little bit thicker skin as individuals when it comes to tests, right? Because that's all the ACFT is. It is a test to give us feedback on what we need to improve on,
Mhm.
right? That's all it is. And it's kind of the same thing when we start looking at progress photos inside of the app. Is like we need to take that emotion out of it and really look at the photo like I do, like as a coach does, which is comparing left shoulder to left shoulder, right shoulder to right shoulder, right hip to right hip, right? You're just comparing these things inside of these photos. Just look at the progress, right? And I get it. We as human beings, Like in a photo, I always tell people this, right? As especially I get older too, my skin's starting to droop a little bit. Like I always look at my double chin, right? Like when I look at all photos, like that is the first thing that I look at, right? And that's nature for us as individuals. You're going to look at your troubled area. I get that. And that's where it's sometimes hard for people to see it. But the scale, especially now that we're 3-ish weeks in, is not going to be the best tool for some people, right? And it can drive people a little bit crazy, for lack of better terms. And they have that emotional attachment to the scale versus if we look at those progress photos, it's going to give us a lot better feedback and be a lot better tool as we go along this wellness journey.
Yeah, I think when like on my end, on the consumer's end, when I take a photo, I don't readily see my month before, week before, week before, week
Yeah.
before, like all in a glance. So like you gotta get caught up, like, oh, I kind of still look rough or still look the way I don't want to look this way. But on your guys' end, you're able to like quickly see, like, oh, hey, in a week you made some big changes. Good job, whatever.
Yeah, like I can scroll back really quick inside someone's profile, and there's even an option to flip back to the first initial photo they took in the app, right? So I can flip that back. And I do this sometimes people, and I actually tell them, from the standpoint of just saving me time with, hundreds of individuals I work with, like, hey, take a photo from you a month ago and put it beside a photo now. And 90% of the time they message back like, okay, I see it now. So a lot of times I'll take that 3 to 4 week journey and let them look at it versus week to week, because as like you said, an end consumer is not trained, right, to look at the progress photos, right? That you're just not. And it's your photo. So once again, taking you back to what I just said, you're gonna have that emotional attachment to it and look at that one troubled area that's always bothered you versus looking at the whole photo, right?
Mm.
And as I mentioned earlier, 3 to 4 weeks in, Reno, what we have right now is, and this is different for everybody. I'll give you some different scenarios. You can have some people like week one, they may have lost 6 or 7 pounds, right? That scale dropped 6 or 7 pounds. That is not 6 or 7 pounds of body fat, right? It's just 6 to 7 pounds on the scale. Now, it doesn't mean that they didn't lose body fat. It doesn't mean they didn't follow the program. It doesn't mean that they're doing not doing well. It's just that we do lose some water weight. We lose water weight daily, weekly, that type of stuff. But a lot of times during the first week of a challenge or a lifestyle change, you'll see people drop, quite a bit secondary to decreasing the inflammation along with depleting muscle glycogen because most people are over consuming carbohydrate when they start their journey. And then when they start their journey, they cut back on some carbs, right? Carbs and fats generally because we lower calories. Plus, you start exercising, and that's going to deplete that muscle glycogen a little bit. So, you'll see these 6 or 7 pound drops week one, right? But then you only see a couple pound drop the next week, and then maybe nothing the third week, right? And then this individual is like, Jeremy, it's not working anymore. I'm working harder than I was, 3 weeks ago. Nothing's changing. And I can pull them back and be like, hey, you're down 9 pounds in 3 weeks.
Yeah.
So if we lose another couple pounds, we're looking at 11 pounds that you're down in a month. I was like, that's good, but you have to understand you had that initial drop in the scale. So the scale is going to take a little bit time to quote unquote catch up to that because that initial loss could have been water weight.
Yeah. Aren't your isn't this kind of what you guys teach? And I know it kind of from the bodybuilding perspective, but as far as like transformation, like you're just looking at like a half a pound per week is solid.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at like a lot of the individuals, and we're up to on the team now as we're looping Monte into Team Alpha. So previous Team Mullins and Team Alpha, we have won either a quarterly challenge, yearly challenge, because it used to be quarters when we first started, in the challenges in the first form app, and they moved. I'm sorry, that's say quarters monthly.
Yeah.
So there was monthly, and then moved to quarters. But since I've been involved, with First Form, we have won 31 times, 31 or 32. They run together now. But you get my point, right? And you look at all of these individuals, and if you break it down into a year, most of those fat loss are half a pound to a pound at max on average per year, right? Now, sometimes you'll get a big initial loss because people are coming in, they're inflamed, right? So they've been eating, you've been eating like garbage. When I say garbage, you're eating fast food, you're drinking sodas, maybe you're drinking alcohol, you're not sleeping very well, like you are inflamed. You're doing everything that's causing inflammation. Okay. You lose a lot of that in the beginning. So yes, the losses could be big in the beginning, but then they slow as you go. Or talk to, Kevin last year. I'm not sorry, Adam, him on Kevin and Adam were both winners. We've had them both on the podcast. So, but Adam didn't lose anything the first few weeks, right? Like didn't lose on the scale the first few weeks. He lost inches, but he didn't lose on the scale. So yeah, people need to look at it and really take this back view, like, hey, 5, 6 weeks into your wellness journey, if you're losing a half a pound to a pound of body fat, you are golden. You are good. And guess what? If you're 2 pounds a week, 5 weeks in, 6 weeks in, you're doing superior,
Yep. Yeah, it goes to show you that you're putting in the work,
hands down,
early
right?
on. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, 2 pounds a week, you got to be 1,000. I mean, that's. I'm sorry, it's a 1,000 calorie deficit is on average is going to create that, right? So roughly 3,500 excess or deficit, 3,500 calories is going to be a pound. So 1,000 calorie deficit on average per day is 2 pounds a week. So that's a big deficit, right? And so especially when you get people who are weighing 130s to 160s, hey, half a pound of body fat a week is good.
Yeah. Does that give you is that kinda like your excitement when you see the buy-in when you do see such a big weight loss in the beginning because you know that the accountability is kinda there and they are putting in the work?
Not necessarily, right? Because if I see a big loss to the week one, like it becomes could be problematic this week, right? And I say this week because right now we're in like the third week, so we may drop this a week from now, but it can be problematic for some people because they expect that 6 pound loss every single week, right? So they lost 6 pounds the first week, 2 pounds the next week, and then only a pound, and they don't lose anything. They're like, "What's going on?" And I feel like, no, no, no. You've lost 6, 8. You've lost 9 pounds in a month. That's 4 weeks, 9 pounds. That's over 2 pounds a week,
Yeah.
right? And then you got to walk them back off that ledge, explain it to them because it just comes back to what is the expectations of the individual, and you can't blame them, right? You start this wellness journey, you're doing all the right things, and the scale moves 5 or 6 pounds the first week. Like you expect that every week. Like, hey, if
Yeah.
I go do the same thing again, right? Like I expect the same results. But understanding how the body works is going to be key to eliminate that frustration.
Yeah. And with those photos, it kind of takes, the pressure off of my mind 'cause I mean, whether I'm not seeing it, you guys are seeing it and then giving us the feedback.
Right. And depending on, how new is the individual to their journey, there's a lot of things why, and I'm not saying just progress photos, guys, because I got some of us, it's hard to tell by looking at them ourselves. So it really is a combination, right? Like I'm not against the scale. I want to see the scale in someone's journey. I want to see progress photos in someone's journey, right? I want their feedback on a weekly basis. Like, hey, how are you feeling? How are your energy levels? How are you sleeping? Like all that goes into play to me on what we're doing right and what we're doing wrong. So I'm not downing the scale saying don't weigh in, right? Or I'm not saying it only has to be photos. What we're saying is progress photos and the scale together are better than either one of them individually. So that's what I want people to really think at and look back, now that we're getting 3 to 4 weeks into your journey here, is take those photos and then compare them to 3 to 4 weeks ago and look at the difference, right? Even though the scale may have not moved much for people, really look at those photos to be able to tell the difference.
Is that something, you kind of preach as well? Like maybe only weigh in when you're doing progress photos, so that way you're not seeing a crazy number on it.
Yeah, and everyone's different. So, I allow, people want to weigh in daily, they can, but if there's some emotional coming through it and they're wasting some emotional energy, because like the scale is fluctuating up and down, like then I'm like, hey, we got to back off this, right? Because your body is going to fluctuate weight on the scale, secondary to water weight, right? And that water weight is either going to be water that you consume, right? So are you hydrated? Are you dehydrated? Okay. Because if you hop on the scale and weigh yourself, hop off the scale, drink 20 ounces, 24 ounces of water, and you hop on the scale, you're going to weigh more. You're going to be up in weight because you literally just consumed water. Okay. Certain types of food are going to hold on to water or absorb water, or certain types of food are going to slow the digestion, more than others that pull water in, right? So that has to do with it. Sleep. If you don't get enough sleep, you're going to have increased cortisol levels, which increase inflammation levels. Okay. Did you travel? There's so many things that go into the scale. So what we normally do is try to tell people, hey, weigh in once a week under the same circumstances, right? So I got a guy today, and this is probably a topic we need to do later on too, talking about like when people are in reduced caloric diets, but now they're running, say, 12, 13, 14 miles because they're training for a marathon, how they work their calories in, but still with a fat loss goal, right? And we touched on it a few times, but it goes back to like we need to have a baseline set of macros and we need to have fueling macros. Because he's like, man, Jeremy, I overate. I ate 3,200 calories on Saturday. And I was like, hey, brother, because he's 200 pounds. So 3,200 calories at 200 pounds, and he ran 16 miles. That's not overeating,
Yeah.
right? Like, so
Yep.
there's just the fear because he's stuck in, okay, I've got to consume 2,200 calories to lose body fat or whatever it is, So, but my point to that was he was a little frustrated because he overate, which he didn't overeat. He overate on his baseline, but as far as you include his fueling in there, I would say he was still in a calorie deficit. But he weighed in on Sunday morning after doing a 16-mile run on Saturday. So he was inflamed,
Yep.
right? Anytime you're sore, you're going to have inflammation. So he was up a couple pounds and he was slipping out. I'm like, hey, we can't weigh in at that time. You can, but you have to understand your body's going to be inflamed for doing that extra movement. Okay.
Yeah.
So, what I generally try to tell people is, hey, let's try to pick one day a week, try to have the same routine, try to manage anything that you can think of and have it be the same week to week. Right. And this is where the traditional, for those OGs that have been around, the last 5, 8 years, that's the reason why I always did weigh in Wednesdays. Because you think about it, people have to travel on the weekends, like you and I guarantee we were up weight on the scale on Monday just from lack of sleep this weekend, just because, we both worked out, we both did stuff, but then you're on your feet, just a typical, drill weekend, right? And then for me, I got to sit in the car for, I'm in a soapbox right now. It's supposed to be 9.5 hours, but there is no way to get from Frankfort, Kentucky to Tallahassee, Florida without getting stopped in traffic. Like it is horrendous around Chattanooga, Atlanta. Sorry.
There's nothing you can do about
Yeah, I just needed to get that off my chest.
it.
So 12-hour drive sitting, it's going to cause some inflammation. So the reason we always chose Wednesday as like weigh in Wednesday in the beginning is, of course, the W's go together there, but it gives the body, it gives the individual and the body time to get back into a routine so that the weigh in on Wednesday would be more accurate than maybe Monday after whatever is going on the weekend.
Yeah. And I need to start following that actually, because I always when the first format, it's like, "Oh, it's time to weigh in." Like, for
Yeah.
some reason, it tells my brain that I'm, like,
Yeah.
missing something, so then I just
Listen,
anyways.
and guys, on the app, it just does it on Mondays, right? So I have a lot of people, hey, Jeremy, I did the assessment on Sunday and now it's telling me I need to do it again. It's like, yes, because technically Sunday is on the other week,
Yeah.
and the Monday starts a new week. So, but yeah, normally just, hey, weigh in once a week. Let's watch trends. Let's understand. Let's absorb this knowledge that we're teaching so that you understand why that scale can be up. And then the last part of this would be, you got to be 100% honest with yourself. You can't be like, oh, it's a little inflammation when you didn't track over the weekend. You ate what you wanted to. You know what I'm saying? Like, you got to look at those factors into it too and be 100% honest with yourself.
Yep, exactly.
So, awesome. So, take home message, take your photos, compare them to, 3 or 4 weeks ago. And it wouldn't hurt to always compare them to 4 weeks ago versus you looking at individual week to week. Know that that scale is going to move, secondary to water weight, inflammation, change in diet, change in sleep. So it's better to look at the trend over time. And here's the honesty for those that are in it right now. We're not going to know for another couple of weeks on what you could be averaging per week because it takes the body a little bit of time here as we move along to find what that average is, especially if you were one of those individuals that had a big loss the first week. We really aren't going to know what we can knock off week to week until we get into week 4 and 5 and 6 to where that scale catches up with itself and we can see what we're moving forward with as far as the body fat loss goes.
That's right.
Guys, we appreciate you coming on here and listening as always. Look forward to the next couple of weeks. We're going to do a little pre-run of 2025. We're going to drop 5 shows in 1 week just to kind of get a flow of what that would be from our end as far as workload, as far as topics, what does the flow of the week want to look like, that type of stuff. So as always, we appreciate you for listening. If you guys do have any questions for us, feel free to reach out.
See you.